um, say good afternoon to us again for those in the same time zone with me. In one of the classes, I think the third one, I was here, and then we're still going through the elementaries, and I'm sure that from what I have seen so far, we have really gone deep to the point that we are at that phase of building our projects. And I've also seen some projects that have been submitted by some of us who have tried out some things. And I want to commend you for your patience, your persistence, and your commitment. Everything they say started in a way that seemed to be difficult, but with repetition and consistency, things that were initially difficult eventually become simple, right? But then, even those that you have learned from here, that you may feel they are elementary, like the ones you've grabbed already, especially for those who are beginners who would feel these are still elementary things, right? Believe you me, it is the simple things that help to avoid complex issues. So, and the fact that you know it, the fact that it is simple to you does not mean that everyone know it, right? So the fact that you have that knowledge is the power that you have to rule your own world, I would say. And then immediately for me, I prefer to give back as soon as I learn. So I would truly advise us to look for people to share the same knowledge with. Because when you give somebody knowledge, you empower him or her, as the case may be. And that's why all of us here at Textilers, as busy as we may be, we have to be responsible for what the course we have chosen, right? And the course is to change one life at a time. So you too can also use that initiative, follow that initiative and see how you could also reach out to someone, because definitely what you know now, somebody is in need of that. So try to reach out to people as well. So it's exciting when we talk about technologies like Copilots, people tend to be carried away sometimes, right? And then before you know, they are just querying the system to get information from the system, and that's what they're interested in. But beyond the fact that you are getting results of what you are doing, you need to also come to check the possibility of compromising the security of your organization. So you need to also be fast to think that, hey, are you sure that the fact that I'm able to get this outcome, that nothing is, let's say, whatever that is sweet causes stomach ache in a way. So if anything is too sweet, like our people will say, a wolf runs stomach. So no matter how something, like one of the things that happens is to some people who actually fall prey of um, cyber criminals is because perhaps what they are offering them is way is looking, if it's looking too good to be true, then you have to suspect it, right? So Copilot is something that a lot of people are so excited about. And I go to events where people present on Copilot, they are just excited about the report it is giving to them. Here, I was able to ask Copilot this. Copilot was able to meticulously do this. Copilot was able to do that. Copilot. Yes, I am as excited as anyone who uses Copilot to build agents, to write prompts, to bring out, to get prompts that will give them output. And recently, you can even schedule prompts and then it gives you output. A lot of people are just overexcited about Copilot. People who have not started using Copilot are in a hurry to start adopting it. Those who want to extend it and start extending Copilot. Those who want to like build their own Copilot are just in a hurry building. So if you look at people, the majority of the people that are really concerned about building Copilots, they are really more than the people that really want to keep attention to, yes, it is giving me what I want. Of course, we've learned from here that all the information it is getting, it's leveraging on your own data, and what is monitoring the whole thing, or like like a scent, like a, what do I call it now, like the basket that is holding all of your fruits of different kind together is the what's it called, the Microsoft Graph, right? That actually handles everything that has to do with, okay, let's check if this guy has permission to X, Y, and Z, and then before it will release the information to the person. At least if you want to query anything, or if you want to prompt anything to get an output, there must be a knowledge base, right? There must be a knowledge base, and the outcome that it brings, it's based on the permission you have on the knowledge base. And unfortunately, a lot of organizations are really focused on what do I call it? The use of M365 as a whole. Some of them even go as far as using the service as it is. Like when I say use it as it is like the default settings that come with Microsoft 365. It's just they don't even know. They don't even go far to check, what's like the best practice are, right? So yes, on the minimum, the environment is secure, but you can just be breaching some kind of compromise without knowing. Example is how you share your data, how you allow your data to be shared. Let's say, for example, I want to share a file with somebody. What is the default link that it would default to, right? So am I going to allow people share my file with people outside of the organization? And then am I going to allow, so there is a group called everyone except external user, right? So am I allowing that to happen, that people just accidentally share, file with everybody in the organization? Remember that if there's a confidential file that was accidentally shared, when you were not using Copilot, you were fine. You could go here and there and then you may never one day try to query that kind of thing because you don't even know that you have access. But do you know what? Maybe the mistake you do while trying to write prompt on Copilot will expose you to information that you are not supposed to even be having hands on, right? That's supposed to be secluded from you now because you mistakenly typed a prompt, or you were trying to explore Copilot and then you dropped a prompt, and then the prompt is now exposing you to data that you are not supposed to even have access to. So things like this are happening while people are adopting Copilot. So that's why today we are at the second phase of our conversation. We are going to be looking at those who have brought in their projects, and then we would look at them just by the topic, and then from next week we will go into the defense proper, right? So why those who have not submitted topics, who have not prepared, should please button a buckle up, because from next week everything will start fully. So having said that, all that we are going to be dealing with today is trying to now say, okay, guy, you look too good, right? So you are so sweet to use. So what are those parts of you that we need to be aware of? Because it can actually be like a hit on us if we do not take care of some blockages that we need to quickly patch, right? Before we go fully into Copilot. And for those who are already using it, they need to hold their break and then go back and check their admin centers and see that everything they are doing is well secure. So what I'm trying to say is that our conversation today is going to be about data governance, right? And then data exposure, and we try to see how we can mitigate oversharing of data, because before Copilot can give you an output, it consults your Microsoft Graph, and it's Microsoft Graph that determines the permission that you have on the file. And it is based on the permission you have on the file that Microsoft Graph gives the information to Copilot to give to you after the large language model does its own work and all of that you're already aware of. So that's going to be the our take on the conversation today. So having said that, I'm just going to present my screen so that we just go through like a lot today as much as we can. I just have one screen here. So if you raise your hand, I may not be able to see you. So please, you may just drop maybe something on the chat, and Miriam can call my attention. So while I was trying to get my stuff together, prior to this call, I I was I was looking at something, right? And it's in the admin center. Unfortunately, we may not have like the admin role to the tenants that we are working on, right? But I wanted to be aware that these settings are things that you should be aware of, and possibly recommend to the organization that you are going to be working with or the one you are currently working with why they use Copilot. And if by chance you have opportunity to the admin center, then perfect. You can go check out these settings. Or if you have anyone who can, if you within the training, if you have, or if you have anyone out there who could give you access to test environment, then it will really be great. So for today, we are going to be, I'll start from the scratch kind of. So there is a URL that it's that for me is one of the most useful short link that I can use to access all the M365 Administrative Center. So I just want to show you something there before we come back to the other areas in Microsoft Doc, because all our conversation today would be coming mostly from Microsoft documentation. So having said that, so if you type cmd, right, .ms, that is command dot Microsoft or something, right? But cmd.ms, and you press it and you click on enter, what will happen is it will bring you to I'm just trying to reduce my okay. So it will bring you to this place called the Microsoft Cloud Command Line, right? So here is where you can go to, including the user portal, right, and the admin centers. So you can filter to fit what you are looking for. For example, there are a lot of areas that we don't even want to go into right now. Okay. So, but if you want, so for what we are talking, from what we are doing, so it is good for me to tell you that the data that you are going to be using for the chief of the storage that you are going to be accessing or referencing for your Copilot prompts and outputs is your OneDrive and SharePoint. So OneDrive is for individual file, while SharePoint is for the files of a team, right? If you are in a team, so when you create a team, it automatically creates a SharePoint site. And all the files that you're going to be having as interaction within the team's channels, be it the standard channel, be it private or shared channel, all of them will create site or will have presence in SharePoint. So whatever files that you will ever interact with will go there to save. In short, your meeting recordings that are done in Teams channels go to your SharePoint site to go and sit. And then for activities that have to do with you alone, like files that you own, files that you share with your colleagues, are going to be saved to your OneDrive. So if you open the OneDrive link, you would see it reading my SharePoint. So technically speaking, OneDrive is actually SharePoint, but it is a SharePoint for you alone. So it is OneDrive, it is yours, right? Now, if you want to manage SharePoint, you go to SharePoint Admin Center. If you want to manage OneDrive access, right, you still do the same thing from the SharePoint Admin Center. So this is just telling you that SharePoint and OneDrive are the same family. While SharePoint is like, I would just call it like extended family because it includes a lot of people. Then OneDrive is like a bachelor or a spinster who is just him alone. Then can now decide to share with maybe friends, right? Or colleagues, as the case may be, but the files still belong to him. So having said that, what that is saying is that the decisions you're going to make on how Copilot is going to handle your data is still buttressing on your primary data source, right? Which are your OneDrive and your SharePoint. So these are the two places where you can possibly have your files, the bulk of it. Yes, they can be like attachments in emails, but these are also not as significant as, for example, if you're having Exchange Online license plan 2, for instance, you're having 100 gigabyte mailbox size, right? But for every account that you provision in M365, right, that is licensed, for business or for enterprise, is going to have like 1 TB or space for storage. I don't want us to go into like the more details, but at least look at the difference. 100 gigabytes, and then if you're even going for business basic or business standard, apologies if they've not, if they since we've not gone into those areas, but you're going to have like 50 gigabytes of mailbox size. So it means that the content you are going to have on your mail, like attachment or so, even though there can be other advanced ways of looking at extending it or something, but it is insignificant compared to what you would have in your SharePoint or your OneDrive that is even as high as 1 terabyte per user. So that is where your data is sitting. So the reason I'm saying this is just because I want us to know where our data lives. Where does your M365 data lives? And then if you know where your M365 data lives, therefore you know where to block, right? Just so you don't make data available to people who are not supposed to have access to them. So you need to really be intentional about what level of permissions you are setting on those different platforms. That is just the sense I'm trying to make. Now, this is M365. So what you do from here, you can just quickly type SharePoint, right? You will see SharePoint here, and then you can get in from all the way from cmd.ms. It will take you down to your SharePoint Administrative Center. And this is how the SharePoint Admin Center looks. So everything that have to do with your OneDrive data and your SharePoint data, this is where you actually set the permissions, right? So now, having known where your data is saved, at least on the surface, you can see here that this is my tenant, and then this is my entire tenant, and then it's showing me admin sharepoint.com and all of that. If I come here to, let's say I sign into office.com, right, which we all know. So if I sign into office.com, which we all know by now, then something that will happen is that I would have the option to go to my OneDrive, right? I still have option to go to my SharePoint. And this access, you should have it even now, right? But the difference between where I went to earlier and where I am going to now, the SharePoint that is for an individual access, right? I mean, the end user access, the SharePoint portal, I would say, is different from the SharePoint Administrative Center, right? So this is office.com. From the last time that we started this training up until today, there is a change that happened. So, but it's not a major change. It's just for you to come here, click on apps. So when you click on apps, right, you have SharePoint. This SharePoint here is not this SharePoint here. This one here, you will see that it's SharePoint Admin Center. But if you come here and you click on this SharePoint, then it's going to be the SharePoint, the end user view of SharePoint and level of access on SharePoint. Don't mind all my multiple clicks. It's just because of some things I set on my tenants, right? So now this place is different from this place. Now, how do you know? You start looking at, excuse me, I meant here. You start looking at this place being SharePoint. Then you start looking at this place being SharePoint, right? Why here carries admin center, this does not carry admin center. Now, this is what you will see if you sign in now to SharePoint. And then again, if I click on OneDrive, which is like the other primary places where I have access to things, right? If you click on OneDrive, let's just say that, let me just see if I can, yeah, just click on here. There's something I really wanted to bring out for us, which is the URL, right? I wanted it to show you that my SharePoint stuff, but I think some things changed recently. But if you open your OneDrive, these files that are here are yours. And then if you look at this place, right? If I click on share now, right? And then I type everyone, you can see this thing here, everyone except external users, right? We'll still get into the details here, right? everyone except external user, what it means is that this file is going to be available to everyone in the organization. So what it means is that, for instance, if SC400 was salaries, employee salary file, right? And by mistake, somebody who has access to it, like me, has said everyone except external user, and then he hit on send. This file becomes available to everybody in the organization. So it means that if by chance they are prompting anything regarding salaries on their Copilot, because they have access to the salary folder or the salary file, then they are going to get access to say what is the MD's salary. Or yes, of course, when you say what is the MD salary, because I have access to that, what it will do is that it will go and look at job function. When you create user, you give them job function, right? Let me just take you there briefly. So if I come here, I don't want to take us to too many administrative center, but I just want to show you something. Now you are prompting. Remember that the data is shared to everyone except external users. And now what that means is that everybody, including those in IT, those in finance, those in business development, just name it, they all have access to that file by virtue of doing what I just did. And now when that person is prompting Copilot to say that, what is the MD's salary? Now what happens is that Copilot through Microsoft Graph would go to the all employees, right, in the organization and look at their job title, right? So when it looks at their job title, the ones that are MDs, right, the ones that their job title is MD, it will go and check that and match it together with the file that it has, and then you know what it will do? Come here and check what can we use now? Maybe one of the roles here that will speak to job title, yeah, that will speak to job title. Maybe this is MD, right? So what it will do is that it will find a way to go and know who are those that are MDs in the organization, and then relate it to what they have there, and then possibly bring out, or not even saying MD, for example, I want to say what is Christopher's salary. So what it does is that it goes to that file and then inquire of it. Just imagine that you are HR, and then maybe you have sensitive records, and then you are sharing HR's what's it called, data with anyone, and this is the folder or the file as the case may be. So Copilot will not respect if you did that by mistake or not. So it will just bring out the output of the conversation and then give to the guy, because by virtue of checking, right, they have access. So why will it be prevented when whether it was mistakenly shared or intentionally shared, nobody knows. So that's one of the dangers, right? And that's the essence of today's conversation around data governance. How do we treat it, right? So I think that will form like a very nice background. So getting so if I come here, right, and show you some things. If you check here now and you come to sharing, right? Data, you can decide that from the admin point of view that you want to control some of these settings, right? To make sure that you don't just allow anyone with the link to be sharing file. So you want to lower these bars, as the case may be, to say, okay, let it just be on OneDrive and SharePoint, it should be just people within my organization, right? So you just want to set something way lower, right? You want to put it this way to say, okay, you can't share files out of this organization. Everything should remain inside, right? While you are even doing this, it's fine. It means that anyone with the link, which is meaning that you can share file with anybody, will no longer be there. Fine, beautiful, no problem. But do you know that after doing this, right? In terms of Copilot, this will not really help you because if you go for anyone in the organization except external user, it means that everybody in your organization can still have access to the file, right? So now these other settings don't really speak too much about Copilot, so I wouldn't like to go into it, all that. Now, another point that we need to look out for is the site lifecycle management, right? And then in reports also, we have what is called data access management. But then before we go into this, I want us to come back to Microsoft Doc that speak a lot about how to get ready for M365 Copilot with SharePoint Advanced Management. Now you hear the word SharePoint Advanced Management. SharePoint SharePoints can be used to govern organization data effectively. When we say govern, it means to set policies and controls in place to make sure that you are sticking to best practices, right? So to ensure assistance provided by Copilot is appropriate, Copilot is providing you assistance, but it can be disastrous. Now, to ensure that assistance provided by Copilot is appropriate, accurate, and especially compliant. Because you don't want to hit a legal case because you wanted the fast way around things. Remember, there are audit checks that can just hit you, and then somebody wants to, like the report we will see later, right? And discover that, so you left the data open to people who are not supposed to authorize to see this data. So as your organization, and listen, let me take it again, to provide to ensure assistance provided by Copilot is appropriate, is accurate, and it is compliant as your organization's SharePoint admin, it is very crucial for you to ensure that your organization data in SharePoint is appropriately governed for this following reason, or for these following aspects rather. One, manage content sprawl. So what this means that you need to reduce content duplications and ensure well-planned content creation to ensure that all sites and content are well managed, governed by the site owners. Now, if you have a SharePoint site, ideally you are supposed to have two owners of a SharePoint site. But you know what? Some sites are ownerless because they were created by the admin, right? And the admin was not even a part of it. It just created it, added members, and there was no owner. Second reason why you can have a SharePoint site without an owner is the SharePoint site was created, there was an owner, but the owner resigned and the account has been deleted or perhaps disabled. The user is no longer an active user. So the site becomes an ownerless site. Now, the problem is that who is going to moderate what is happening in that site? It means it's just like a house without the parents, and then the children are kids. They can't do a lot for themselves. So such children are going to do things that are out of place, and there's nobody to moderate, right? And even those who would know what right to do, maybe they don't even have the capacity to do it, so they become helpless. So in that case, you need to ensure that one, that all your sites have owners. That's number one. Number two is that if you have Copilot is going to make decision, right? And then there are duplicates of data sprawl. You have duplicates of data, and to even worsen the whole situation, the data is not consistent. For example, you have a file that says that you have what's it called, a document that speaks to the fact that Textilers was founded in 2019, and then you come again with another one to say it was founded in 2022, and then you are putting different dates together. So the system becomes confused on what exact accurate information it will use to give you response to your prompt when you are asking it when was Textiler, when did Textiler start, or when was it, when was the initiative brought to light, something similar. So you need to have like a well-planned content creation Try as much as possible to remove duplicates. Try as much as possible to make sure that there are owners to maintain their site. Second point is that prevent content oversharing. This cannot be overemphasized because in data governance, generally in M365, you are not supposed to give someone access to data that he or she does not need. And especially if the policy does not, if the policy require that these are private data. And this is the essence of sensitivity labels, right? To quickly give, say, this is internal only, these are personal files only, that kind of thing, right? Or general file or anyone, right, in the organization, because we really want to be sure that people that have access to your file then are really the people that need access to it. So you must be careful. When somebody needs a read access on a file, let the person only have read access. When the person has restricted view access, give the person restricted view access. Let it not be that somebody who needed restricted view. Now, what's the difference between restricted view and view? View is that you can view, right? You can read, you cannot edit, but you can download, right? Then restricted view is that you can view, but you cannot download and you cannot print from that source. And now there's edit permission. Edit permission is that you can make changes, but you can't delete the file. Then if they make you like an owner of the file, it means that you cannot only delete, you cannot only edit, you cannot only view, you cannot only download, but you can also delete the file. So we need to be sure, what access are you supposed to have? Remember that it's as bad as when somebody has read access on a file and prompts Copilot for output, it is going to give it to him. So as small as view access can be, is enough for anybody to prompt Copilot, and Microsoft Graph will give him the answer to what the person is requesting for. Therefore, you need to be very intentional just to save yourself from going to court when audit is carried out, which we are going to see on how to detect those files that are overshared so that you can begin to retrieve them, right? Then prevent content oversharing and control content access. So use tools available to SharePoint admin and site owners. So site owners have some level of controls too to prevent users from oversharing content. So limit content access by Copilot with use of group settings. So from group settings in Copilot, in my SharePoint, you can really say, okay, you know what? Everybody should be able to. Now, it may be that these HRO sites that somebody may have mistakenly shared content here in this site to somebody who was not supposed to have access. Now that we are adopting Copilot, let us know that it's possible that nobody had access, but we want to assume that somebody possibly had access. Now, what do? Let us block it, that if there was at any point in time that file were shared with people outside of HR, they should no longer have access again. That's number one. Number two is that we may have a system that says, okay, now, in as much as we are adopting Copilot, we never want Copilot at any time to go to this site to use any information from it. And Microsoft Graph is going to respect that setting. So no matter how you query, you write your prompts to say this, it will never bring an output from that particular site. It will restrict access to Copilot. So Copilot cannot get in to process any information. So you can limit content access by Copilot with use of group settings and other tools. Now again, you need to manage content lifecycle. For example, when you have how do I put it? When you have something to search for, if your sample space, if there's space from which you want to look for something, if you have fewer things there, it is easier for you to process one, and it is more accurate for you to make a decision out of it, right? How do I put it? Let's say, for example, you are looking for a pin, right? You are looking for a pin in the midst of gravels, right? So if you have fewer gravels and then you have the pin, in between them, it is easier for you to isolate them and quickly bring out the pin. But what if you have like sand and then there is like a heap of it, or in that gravel you have like a lot of other things covering your pin? It becomes like a whole lot of job for you to now find what you are looking for because the sample space is too large. The same thing too, there are data that are sitting on your OneDrive, that are sitting on your SharePoint that you will never use again. And because you are not even aware, and because maybe because you do not have the knowledge about how to automate, maybe will I say automatically? Yeah, I think that can work also. Automatically check the system to know data that are archaic, that are old, that are no longer new, to give you like when you have like a policy 1.0, then you're having 1.1 and then 1.2 and like that. So it would be nice if you have updated your policy upon policy, and then there are some things that have been what do I say, have been updated, and the policy at some point had changed a lot of things. And then you remember that the first policy 1.0 is still sitting inside your OneDrive, and then you are having all of those there. You could actually say, okay, let there be a life cycle. Now, this particular policy, yes, but it's not going to respond to the question of the day. Or this one was just a policy draft, right? Now that there is one that has been approved, then it's time for us to now remove the draft. But unfortunately, you just created another folder within the same SharePoint site, and then you now bring up policy, the finished one, the endorsed policy, and you have a folder for it. Then your draft that you made are still there in another folder. Now, when you are querying Copilot, remember that it goes into all of the system, and then it looks at, from what we have learned so far, it looks at the entirety of your data that you have access to relating to the topic that you are prompting the system. Then it means that while it is trying to juggle for the right idea, it is only munching through the old or the archaic data as well. And then it may just be giving you responses that do not really make sense to you in that case. So remove inactive and outdated content and sites. So you have to make sure that the information Copilot access is accurate and it's up to date. So these 3 points are really very important while you are preparing to use Copilot in your organization, and why you have the mind to get like an appropriate response to your prompts. It is very, very important that you take note of that. Now, so there is what is called advanced management, SharePoint advanced management, right? So SharePoint advanced management is a tool that is a pro. So if you have the standard SharePoint license, there are some things that you need the pro access to run, that the standard license that you may have bought as a standalone, or the standard license that came together with a suite that you bought. Let's say you are buying business premium, for instance, right? And then it's coming with SharePoint, right? And then if you are buying M365 E3 or E5, as the case may be, now, the SharePoint Advanced Management license is a separate license that you need to add on your tenants to be able to check some more intricate, for example, this inactive and outdated content. You can't do this with the standard SharePoint license. Now you need the advanced SharePoint license to be able to do some reports that would help you know if you are standing right or not. And that license is coming at $3 per user per month. But the good news is that if you are using the M35 Copilot license, then you will have access to that capability of the SharePoint Advanced Management tool. So the SharePoint Advanced Management tool is actually an essential Microsoft 365 add-on that helps you as the SharePoint admin to address the 3 pillars around content governance, right? To get ready for your organization, Microsoft 365 adoption. So there are a few highly recommended steps, right, that you should take, primarily using SharePoint Advanced Management Tool. These steps are what? To reduce accidental oversharing, right? For example, everyone except external user is a bad kind of setting to allow in your tenant in that case. 2, minimize your content governance footprint, right? And then improve Copilot response quality, right? Control content access by Copilots, like I told you, and ensure data safety specifically for business critical sites. You need to be aware of that. Then let's now go into what steps you need to take. 1, reduce accidental oversharing of data with SharePoint setting. To minimize accidental content oversharing via Copilot results, it is crucial to implement the best practice of sharing. Proactively safeguard your environment, and that is key. Now, to effectively prepare your organization for Copilot, you need to set appropriate sharing setting for each end user at both one organization and the site level. So at organization level, update sharing link default to your organization from org-wide sharing to specific link. So what this is saying is that everyone except external user, please remove it first. Now, to reduce risk around accidental misuse, considering high broad scope permission for your end user, right? This hides everyone except external user. This particular group is a very dangerous group in the people picker that no one can see it to you. So you will hide it. You see that thing I showed you here? Where is it? On my OneDrive. Where is my OneDrive? I'm having a blockage up here. But that stuff I showed you, right? Let me just drag this guy down a bit and see. Because I'm using only one screen. Let me see. So that guy, that's share with everyone. Time is not really on our side. We'll have a lot to cover. Let me just maximize this. Now, at the site level, right? Now, at the site level, consider educating site admin on the site level control. They can use restrict member for sharing. So before we even go on, right? Before we go on, I want to show you something that is very key. Some sites, some admins may not even, some site owners, right? Or sites that are existing within your organization, just imagine that your HR site is a public site. So for example, look at this. This site, right? If you come to the settings here, it is bearing, like for instance, it's bearing public. And this is employee onboarding. It can be public anyway, but just imagine that this site was supposed to be for HR, right? Maybe it's supposed to just be HR team, but the type of the site is public. This is a breach. And that is what that document is saying. Educate them. And again, one very important point is this one, external file sharing. This is one of the things you want to tell the admin the site owner to change. Now, this is saying that if anyone is sharing from this site, it's going to be sharing to anyone with the link by default, right? I don't want us to go into site content and all that, we're not teaching SharePoint, but you can decide now to say, okay, only people in your organization first, just so you can close out exposure of data. Now you've done 2 things. Then if you look at it, you have like pro versions here. You see this one that is pro, restrict site access. You see this one that is also, there's another pro somewhere here, I think. Yeah, there's another pro here, which is what? Restrict content from Microsoft 365 Copilot. So if you put this on, what it means is that no matter who prompts Copilot, Copilot will never come here to process information. And then just because we want to also check, we're also here, we'll just give you, I'll just show you this part also. This setting lets you restrict access only to owners and members of this site, of this team. Do you know what? This happens if before you adopted Copilot, it is possible that someone may have shared file from this site, this HR site, with people and we don't know. First of all, we want to say, okay, now what happens is that we do not know, just in case anyone had done this. Now you go to your business critical sites, and these are the two things are required. Go and check what is the privacy. Is it public? Is it private? Is it supposed to be public or is it supposed to be private? Now, if it was supposed to be private and it is public, you just bring it down to private. That's number one, right? Number two is that you have to say restrict site access. You may want to leave this one. Maybe the HR too, we need to use Copilot to process information, but they have to be member of this site. No problem. I will not turn it off for HR. But do you know what? I want to say now that restrict site access. So if I do this, right, and I do this, so use the setting to allow only users in specific group to access the site. You can add 10 security groups, right? Or Microsoft 365 group, then users not in this group will lose, will lose access to the SharePoint site. Now, what are we saying? The point is that at this site, if it had ever at any time shared content with people outside, they will lose access that they used to have now that you are about or you have adopted Copilot, right? Now, I wanted to change it, and it's saying that to change this setting, you first need to allow site level access restriction at the organization level, right? And then that is really giving me access to this, and I'm really curious. I'll come here and I will say, okay, allow access restriction. This settings lets you and the global admin or SharePoint administrator restrict access to site. For sites connected to group or team, you can restrict access only to the group or team owner and members. For communication sites, you can restrict access to only the group you specified. Do you know what? You want to say, okay, now that you are doing this, I don't want to save this because I also want to use this for another demos just very soon. So now, if I do this, I'll be able to come back here and restrict access. So what this is going to do is that it will just limit access to the people that are members, in this case, only the HR team members. So it will flush out every other person that used to have access to any of the content of this file. I said, no, you are not going to have access to it. So that's what this document is telling us, that we should ensure that, where's that point again? Consider educating the site admin on the site level control they can use to restrict members for sharing. So one key setting here ensure that site owners are the recipients of the access request. So if somebody requests access to the site, it should just prompt the site owner. And the sites, they should be intentional, especially when it is private or public. They should be intentional about that. Now, ensure all sites have valid owners. This is very, very important. Now, just because we don't need to go into like the wordings here. I just want to give like an overall overview kind of statement here. How do you know a site? For example, you are a big organization, you have like 10,000 sites. How do you know the ones that have owners and the ones that do not have owners? Now, you need the SharePoint Advanced Management tool, and that will take us to the admin center. But before we go, I want to show you this other step 3 too. Now, you need to clean up unused sites. You have to clean up unused sites, right? So how do you clean up unused sites, really? So identify inactive sites, then take action to reduce your governance footprint and improve Copilot response quality. So inactive sites often contain outdated content, like we mentioned, clustering Copilot data sources and leading to less accurate responses, right? So removing these sites helps Copilot focus on. Now, the problem is that how do you now know the sites that are inactive, right? You need the advanced SharePoint management license to be able to see those sites that are inactive, and you can take decisions on them, whether to delete them, whether to archive them, whether to send them for review, and then the person takes decision on whether they should leave or they should stay. You need the SharePoint Advanced Management license. But if you have Copilot 365 license, of course, you have that, what's it called, benefit to enjoy. Now, this is also saying that identify site with potential overshare. So how do you quickly identify site with potential overshare content without looking at the actual site? Of course, with your SharePoint Advanced Management license that comes with Copilot, you can run two-step reports. The site activities based on reports, right? So this can be done with standard license. Then the permission based on oversharing baseline reports. This one is tied to advanced management license. Now, the site activity based on reports, this is just showing you, usually if you see the content on the site that is being shared with one of the following options, everyone except external user, people in your organization, and anyone, there is a bigger chance that content is overshared. If you see this, just know. So SharePoint Advanced Management Activity Based Reports lets you quickly identify most actively overshared sites by running this. User of everyone, there are reports that you need to run from the admin center, and we are going to be looking at that soon. So the permission based on oversharing baseline, right? So these reports can help you to know where content are overexposed, where you have risk in your data, and everything within your organization regarding the site activities. Okay. Now, the next thing is that what? Control access to what? To contents, right? So when you use Copilot, the result comes from what? The content in Microsoft Graph, like we mentioned. And based on individual's profile and what? And permission, you identify sites with potential overshared. If you go up to look at oversharing, like in stage 3 that we saw up there, right? You want to ensure that Copilot only has access to the content when appropriate. Now, to do this, as a SharePoint admin, you can initiate a site access review. Then you can look at restrict access control policy to make sure that oversharing is not allowed. And then you can use restricted content discovery policy or further controls. This is almost looking like repetition, but it's important for emphasis. Now, site access review and owner, then restrict access with restricted access control. Then it's just about restrict, right? It is very important for you to take note of all this. Now, I haven't said a lot about permission, governance, data, and all of that. Let's even see how the admin center feels, right? So let's just go there and see what now we have to set for us that comes with your. I needed to show you the license Copilot with advanced management. I think should have down below where the licensing is written. Fortunately, that's not, but it's $3 per user per month, and then it is okay. Let me just check. SharePoint Advanced Management license. Let me see if I'm going to see it here. Yeah, this is it. So if you come down to this place, the licensing parts, licensing is somewhere here. Yeah, this is it. SharePoint Advanced Management is a per user license. To use SharePoint Advanced Management, you must have a license for each user in your organization. Okay. It is not required for guests. Okay. So users must also be licensed for the SharePoint kiosk, that is K, P1 or P2, that means they must have the base license via either standalone or M365 suites, like we mentioned. You can now purchase the SharePoint Advanced Management Plan 1 add-on in the Microsoft 365 Admin Center through a cloud service provider, or you can do volume license enrollments, or you can contact Microsoft for this. SharePoint Advanced Management is available for commercial, for different tenants, right? Now, SharePoint Advanced Management is $3 per user per month for commercial customers. For more details about license, you can contact Microsoft also. Now, but then SharePoint Advanced Management feature in M365 Copilot license. The following SharePoint Advanced Management features are included in M365. So it's not like, so from what I'm looking at, it's not like the full-fledged Copilot, what's it called? SharePoint Advanced Management that is embedded in Copilot. But the ones you need for data governance are there. One, Advanced Tenant Rename, which applies to the large tenant with up to 100K. Now, 100K sites, right? Then AI-powered insight is there. Block download policy, files and Teams recording is there. Then change history, right? Data governance, which is one of the things that we're looking at. Everyone except the standard user insights, PowerShell, permission to state report for sites only, and these, and then it comes with this, all of these, right? Restricted access control, and then site lifecycle policy. So site access, then the following Copilot school, which is license school, will include the SharePoint Advanced Management. Copilot 365, you can name them. All of these will come with this feature. So having shown you these features, now how do you use them? And that's really going to be what we'll see in the admin center, right? Let me see. I'm in the admin center now, so I'll maximize again. Now, we are here. We've seen all of this. This is the pro version, restrict access control. We've seen what it means. That is, we want to remove access from those who used to have access. And then restrict content from Microsoft 365 Copilots, which is either off or on, depend on the situation, if you don't want Copilot to access information. But that's for site level permission. Now, I don't want to bring up another tenant to show you like a comparison, but I will just tell you, if you are here in policy, right, site lifecycle management is available if you have the pro version, right? If you have the pro version. And then this is saying site lifecycle management. What's the meaning of lifecycle? Lifecycle is the beginning and the death of something, right? From beginning to the death of something, the lifetime of something. So you use this page to create and manage policies that automate tasks across the life cycle of a site. So that check of inactivity within a site, when last was it used, how far is it about X, Y, or Z, is not possible. It's almost not possible for you to, for example, know the sites that are not active, right? So you can create and configure policies to, one, identify inactive sites, two, send notification to site owners or admin about a site that is no longer active. Thirdly is that it can automatically archive or mark sites in read only. Now, let me tell you, if it identifies sites that are inactive, what happens is that the site you would take decision on that site to say, okay, send a notification to the site owner to say, hey, this site is no longer active. Are you sure you still need it? Or should we allow it to go? You take that decision, right? And then if the guy is not responding, how many months or how many days or whatever it is that you want to decide what should happen to that site if there is no response? Do you just want to automatically archive or mark sites in read only? So archive is that the site is going to be there, it's not deleted, but the content will be read only. Right. So if we come to this, right, we have policy, right, that I created before. So test inactive site policy. That's what I said. So if I check this policy now, if I see there are 21 inactive sites in my tenant, what this means is that these sites are just sitting here. Nobody has been using them for the time that I don't know what's there. Now, if you look at the scope of the site, it includes classic sites. Forgive me if you are not taught, if you don't know anything about different types of sites, communication sites, group content site without themes. In short, why I'm saying this is because you need to be aware. Don't just because you like it, you just keep querying Copilot and you're just getting answer and you are happy. At least know what is happening by the background. It's also very helpful, right? So if I look at the configuration, no activity for at least last 3 months. That's what I said, right? If there was no activity for the last 3 months, then who should be notified via email if the site has been inactive? I said you should send a mail to the site admins to say, hey, bro, do you still need a site? And then what action should the policy take on inactive sites that have not been certified to have been active? So by the okay, wait, hold on. That's so what action should the policy take on inactive sites that have not been certified by the site owner or site admin after 3 notifications? So this is going to be sending notification to the site owner. One, this site is not active. Oh. Do you still need the content that is here? Email one, no response, no problem. This site again, another time, another email is going out to say, hey, this thing is not this. What should we do? Do you still need it? No response. The third one is this site is so after that 3 notification to the admin, what should happen to the file? Should lock the site with read-only access. That's what we are saying in our policy, but we can decide another thing that should happen. And this is just like general about it. And apart from that, right? And apart from that, I put it in simulation mode. In simulation mode is that this is going to send email to the owners of the site, but it is not going to take that action until I click on activate, right? But I can download the report to see for myself what's happening. Why are these sites inactive, right? You can see that this is going to be very helpful to me. I can now present this on a board meeting or something and then say, okay, so these are the sites that are no longer active. Maybe we're having like ESCO meetings or IT meeting, and now that, okay, all of these sites are no longer active. What can we do? Test ABC of cloud, SharePoint, all of these guys. And then we can also now see the site owners. Now that these guys are not responding to us, and we have sent them mail to say, guy, there's an automated mail to them. You are not confirming this. Joseph, what is happening? Then you go to Benga, what's happening? Then you reach out to these guys to find out about it directly since they are not responding to the automated message. Or you can now know that, okay, these are the sites and then whatever decision you want to take, this is not possible if you do not have the advanced SharePoint capability. Now, that said, this was a policy that was created before this class. So we are going to create a policy now and just decide something. So we are saying manage inactive site, and this is the information about what we can do, right? So ideally, you are supposed to read what is here, right? But I will do next now. So the scope, say which site should you check for inactivity? Now, OneDrive sites are excluded automatically, no problem. So we now want to say, okay, what type of sites? Classic sites alone, communication sites alone, group connected to site without teams alone, all of it. So it's okay, every site in the organization, fine. Now, do you want to exclude any site from the list? Right? It is easier to exclude a particular site by just putting the URL here, right? But if I don't, now let's look at it. If I look at exclude again, what is this saying? Enter the URL separated by a new line. So what it means is that if you enter a site, you click on enter, and then you enter another site, you click on enter. That is how you take them, and you can put up to 100 sites to exclude from this decision, right? Apologies, I need to go back to that place. So next, and then I'm including all sites, good. And then include sites with retention policies and retention holds asking. Filter site by creation source, no problem, it's just okay. I don't want to. So if I come here, what it will be telling me is that SharePoint home and then SharePoint, the ones that are created by PowerShell, the one that came from Teams and all of that. Apologies if those technologies are not very used to you, but just be aware that we can do this. So exclude sites. So you can exclude specific sites. We've done that already. Now, what are we saying? How long after the last activity should a site be considered inactive? So include activity on the site file and any connected resources like Microsoft Teams, Viva Engage, and so on. So we want to say, okay, if the site is inactive for 6 months, which is too much, we want to say, okay, 3 months, which is good, right? 1 month, no, it's too short, right? 3 months is fine. So the question is that who should be notified via email if site has been inactive? Recipient will be able to certify the site to keep it active. So if it comes to the guy, the site owners, and say, hey, bro, is this site still useful? And they say yes, so the site becomes an active site, right? Until another 3 months if there was no response. We want to say, okay, send a mail to both the site owners and the site administrators. Now we are saying that, now the question is what action should the policy take on inactive sites that have not been certified by the site owner or the site admin after 3 notifications have been sent to them? We cannot say do nothing. We want to say, okay, do you know what? If that happens, right? This is archive site after mandatory read-only method is recommended. So we want to say, okay, user can view site content but can't edit it. So if it happens like that, if you just go to view alone, this one, I'm not sure why it's not activated yet, right? But access site only after that period should be done. So turn on. Oh, okay. I needed to turn on archive first. So free up storage space with editing, data archiving. So I needed to configure the archiving. Once I configure that, then I can come to archive the site after the user is not responsive for 3 consecutive times. Now it is time for me to, so I can call it textilers inactive site reports. So what am I going to do? I say finish. So now, when you create it like this, don't be in a hurry to be jumping that you've created a policy. It is by default going to be in simulation mode. And then it's going to take some time to run to check through again, right? But you know what? You need to come here and then activate. So if you want that action to be carried out, you activate it. Otherwise, it should just track report for you, and that's all it will do. So we're going to say, okay, activate this, right? And as we speak at the moment, it is going to be activated, and then that action is going to be carried out if a site is inactive for certain a specified number of months. And if you want to deactivate, you can deactivate. If you want to delete the policy, you can delete the policy. If you want to create new policy, you can create new policy. Okay. That's for inactive site. Now, sites without owner is like those little babies without parents in the house. They are helpless, right? They can't do a lot of things by themselves. Even those that know how to do things. Let's say, for example, there was no food in the house. The little girl knows how to at least cook noodles. But because there is no what do I call it? There's no money in the house. She becomes handicapped. The same thing too happens to a site without owners. There's no governance. Everybody is just helpless, right? And if we need to do some certain things that depend on the owner access, then we become stranded, right? So you may just want to check beyond people being stranded by security requirements. A site is supposed to have an owner. A group is supposed to have an owner, and that's very important. So that's why for SharePoint Advanced Management, you have option for this. So what you do is you now say, okay, open this place. And then when you open it, you set up policy to manage ownership of SharePoint sites. Now, you can create, but before we go into creating that, let's even go into the test ownership policy that I created. Now, there is a report that says that I have some, now look at it from outside here. I have 37 sites that this has run against. And then there are sites in between that do not have owners. And how many are those? No one to notify. Maybe 10, right? Out of 37 sites that I have. If you look at the scope, it is covering sites under retention policy, everything classic, communication sites, and all of those other different type of sites. Then the configuration is that who should consider owner for each site. It's a site owner that should consider the people that. So what is the minimum number of owners that we want to require a site to have? Then which action? Who should be notified via email to assign a claim site responsibility? Excuse me. Who should be notified via email to assign or claim site responsibility? Site owners and all of that. It's a configuration. You can edit it. What action should be taken on unattended site that don't meet the requirement of ownership? Lock the site. Once the site does not have people who are owners of it, lock it, please. Let's know where our problem is going to come from, right? So now we'll click on create, and then it advised that you read through all of this as general information. Then, so I think this runs monthly report, right? For non-compliant sites, it's every month that it runs. So you do next. What you do is just the same way we did the other one. You can do all sites, right? So once you do all sites, like it is now, if you want to filter site source and just the same thing. Now, what the difference is that you are setting a policy, right, to say who should be responsible for each site owners. If you want to include site admins, fine. Now you want to see the minimum owners or admin require for each site. Microsoft recommend that you have two, but if you want to say you want one, maybe your organization is small, you can go, but I think it's better to have two. Now you now say, okay, who should be notified via email to assign or claim site responsibility? If there's no site that is an owner, right? That there's an owner, you want to say, okay, do you know what? Send an email to current site admin to grant access. So if a site has less than minimum owners, like less than two, right? Choosing recipient will be notified. So send an email to this guy that he should make somebody an owner of the site. It is recommended to ensure that at least 3 options are selected to increase likelihood of finding an owner. Now you want to say, okay, do you know what? The current owners, in this case, one owner is going to get that prompt, right? To say the policy requires that you have at least 2 owners. This site has 1 owner. Make another person an owner. That's one. Then second point is that manager or the previous site manager of a previous site owner or admin. Now, what does this thing mean, right? Manager's information is only kept for 30 days after the user leaves the organization. So they might receive only one notification based on when the owner or admin left the organization. Now, the point is that this report runs once in 30 days, of course. So now, the manager of a user, let me see where I am here, is the user account that you have under job information, right? You see this manager, you can add someone in the organization to be the manager of, maybe this Abiodun Shegun is the manager of that guy. So what is it saying is that if this site is no longer, oh, I'm looking for where I was. Yeah. So if this site does no longer have or meet the requirement of the number of owners, it should send an email to the manager of a previous site owner. That is if the person had left the organization less than a month ago. So that manager is going to still be the manager even if the account is no longer active for 30 days. So this person may get that from at least once, right? Then active site member. So it may just go to, if there is, so SharePoint measures read and write activity of site member across the site and then identify the most active member. So the most active member of the site may just get a prompt, right? So select the maximum number of active site member to be notified. So you can decide between 2 and 10. You can say, okay, let it notify like 4 most active member that this particular site is not meeting requirements because it does not have the required numbers of owners. So which action do you want to take if the site remains ownerless for more than 3 months, right? So you can now come here and say, okay, do you know what? Set the site to read only. Just lock it, leave it at read only. So if you do next, then it is now that you can put it. It's now that you can put it textile as inactive site policy. So when you do this, you can choose to put it active straight away, right? So run the policy monthly with notification and admin. you are setting up the policy to be active, right? So the policy will start running monthly and will send notification to the configuration recipient, and then active site the active, what's it called, that, and also take the specified action. So you can say yes and then just click on finish. And the policy is going to be active, right? It's going to be running every 30 days. Cool. So it has initiated, and this one has run successfully. So before we wrap up, it's just remaining one major point that we need to look at. And that point is that it's under reports. So if you come to reports, right, if you have the advanced license, the SharePoint Advanced Management license, you have this, what is called data governance, the data access governance. Data access governance gives you a report, right, that shows you. So these reports help you to maintain the security and the compliance of your data in SharePoint. Sharing link, reports available for generation. Identify potential oversharing by what? By nominating sites where users create new SharePoint link in SharePoint. So this is going to show you like the sites that were overshared in terms of, remember, anyone with the link, right? I've not started it. People in your organization, right? And then specific people. So shared externally. So this report will show you, when this report is ready, it will show you sites where the most links were created that don't require signing. You know what? That's anyone with the link, right? I don't want to go into the other one so that I don't confuse anybody. But if you look at it, people in your organization, that means that a link that was shared for, now let's look at the description. Sites where the most links were created that can be forwarded internally. So if it's shared with anyone anyone within the organization, I mean, like they send to Joseph at textilealive.com, I can send to Funyi at textilealive.com, and there's not going to be requirements for anything. He already has access. Perhaps maybe he's not aware of the link, right? Then sites where most links were created for guests. That's the one this one is going to show you. So you just click on run, and then it will run that for you. So, and we will not be able to wait for it to finish. But when it finishes, you can decide to now view through the sites and see how you want to start. So what you would do really is you can just go to that site and then block access to it. That is one of the things that we can recommend. Or you can go to the site itself and then stop sharing. Okay. So that should just be all I want us to see today, because I know that we still need to perhaps ask questions, and also we try to talk about the project defense that is coming up next week so that we know how to handle things. So this is all that I felt that we should look at, because we should not just be have admin access to that tenant where you're trying to access the admin center. But like I will always say, what you've heard before is not going to sound the same thing to you. It's not going to sound the same thing to you like a word you've never heard before. So But if I were you, I will try and see if I can reach out to people within the community, reach out to friends who have access to admin centers that have co-pilots and try this out. Otherwise, you can go over this recording. The documents that I opened are all Microsoft documents. You can document and keep it for your own reference, especially when you eventually have access to that portal. But it's good that you are aware about all these governance that can be put in place in terms of our data. Okay. So, yeah, thank you. So, let's talk about the project, right? Um, let's talk about the projects, please. So what's the updates from your side? I think I have a copy, two here, two or more. Let me check. So how many people are done, and who has any problem with the project and needs to maybe make any form of inquiry or any form of guidance? Miriam is here, I am here, and then we can make input where necessary. Trying to look at those who have submitted already. The content of if anyone would interact with that agent, the person must have the read permission on the content of that site, right?
Okay.
So it is either the person is a member of the site or the person is given access, at least the read-only access on the site, on the content of that site. Now, listen, if you look at this place, right, this is a site, right? Maybe this is your site, for instance. Now, if I come here, right, if I come here, I will see site content. Okay.
Okay.
If I see this site content, I've clicked it, it's just trying to respond. Now, this is what is called site content. And if, for instance, my knowledge base is going to be sitting here, inside of these documents, right? And let's say, for example, I'm creating a folder and I'm calling it, I don't know, maybe, sorry, this is just what's coming to my head, right? Test knowledge base or knowledge source. If I'm saying test this knowledge source now, people that currently have access to these sites will be able to use the agent I am building, because since they have access to the site, by virtue of inheritance, they have access to this folder and everything inside of it. But if I want somebody else who is not a member of this site to be able to access the content of this site, then I will have to go to this share, right? And intentionally get the guy in, right?
Okay.
To that site. Now, but if I want to now use a knowledge source on the agent I'm building, it is this link I'm using, this link I'm copying.
Okay.
So now what it means is that I can either do it that way, I'll come here and I say copy link. Where's this guy? And I say copy link. It is this link I'm going to put on my agent. Because I know that I have, like, let me check. I don't know if that is clear to you yet, but let me just check something.
Yeah, but I need to try it out, see if that's
So
what
let me check something now. I know that I used to have. Let me see. HR. So I know I do a lot of things. Could it be this one? I know I did a lot of things with a site recently. Let me just check something. Just check something. Coming to this place, site content. Yeah, you see this place, employee onboarding. So inside here, right? No, it's not that. It's not that. That's a list. That's a list. That's a list. Excuse me. Site contents. Employee onboarding is a list. There is, let me check inside here. Yeah, this is it. This is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about. Just hold on. My back does not go here. I think I know what I see what I'm looking for now. Site information, right?
Okay.
No, not site contents. Site contents. So inside these documents, right, I have 11 files. So I use this link as the link to this folder as knowledge source for one particular agent I build. So inside here, I have different files and compensation benefits, confidentiality and data policy, employee code of conduct. These are just fictitious policy documents that are here. Now, I came on to Copilot and I built an agent called Smart Onboarding Buddy, right? So when I was supplying the knowledge base, I supplied the link to that channel, right? I supplied the link to this document, right? Put it as a knowledge base. So if I want to see if I want to see how many policy do we have? Okay, how many onboarding policies do we have? I need to know more about the leave policy to guide me. Steps. So what is it going to do? It's going to now comb through it's going to comb through that's my policy, right? Leave, right? And then you can see. So when it does this, right, it now say request process, clear this and all of that, type of leave, including sick leave, permanent, and all of those things. And then do you know what it did? It now reference that document. So if I click on this document now, if you look the link to the document, it's going to be speaking to the document library where that file is. So if you look at this place, HR policy, technology sites, layout, and exactly where it is. If I come to employee onboarding policy now in this site, or is it in this site? Where is it? I have one screen, so this guy is just blocking my way. So if you check this place now, you will see that that policy, it was fetched from here. So the point I'm saying is that it is just proper if you could go to a particular, you can create a folder within, you can even create a new folder, right? You can come to, sorry, you can come to document library here. You can come here and even create like a new document library, and you call it the name you want to call it. So when you call it the name you want to call it, and you create it, in your knowledge source, put all the documents that you want to put here, and let it be that it is the link to that particular document library that you are supplying. Is still fine. But if you want anybody outside of that site to be able to use the agents you are building, then you must share the link to the folder with the person so that Microsoft Graph will know that the person has access to at least read before it can bring out output for the person. I'm not sure if that is, if you still need clarifications on that or you want to test it out for yourself. Yeah, that's fine, absolutely. So with the hope that next week, all of us will be set for defense, right? So the clapping has now become dancing, right? So, but I want to wish us well in all our endeavors. And I want to thank you for staying true to the end of this class. And yeah, that'll be all from me today. All right.